Everything should be on.
Well, hello. We are not launching a rocket right now, but we are close to that. So we are going to start a very close to my heart discussion with young ladies all over the world to see how this entire situation has affected us, all of us, how it still affects us, and how did it affect their studies, what changed around them. And because I feel like most of the time people, adults tend to dominate the conversation in this period also. And a lot of the teenagers and the younger generations are pretty much left out of the conversation. And since I'm working a lot in a lot of projects with teenagers, I feel like they need a voice and they need to be included in this. So I hope through this discussion we will also tackle a few important subjects, like how is education adapting to this situation? How do the younger generation feel this change? Do they feel it lighter or more difficult than we do? And how is life changing for them? How are women's lives in general changed during this period? Because it's a subject which it's too little talked about the increase of domestic violence, about the fact that women have even more things to do now that they work from home, most of them or some of them. And also to talk about a subject which is very important for me, the fact that the conspiracy theories and disinformation in general is now hitting stronger than ever the younger generations. So if, for example, in Romania, we were pretty safe in this regard with the teenagers, now we see how the conspiracy theories are gaining a lot of ground. So it's something to be aware of and to watch out for. But I would like to also say that this is an event supported by Digital Communication Network, which I'm very proud to be part of, here with my colleague and co-host Franak, who will jump in the discussion on and off. He's allowed to be a co-host even if he's among ladies, a panel of ladies here, but we made an exception for him because he's going through not the best period right now, so we want to cheer him up. So he will jump in this discussion. And also here with friends from World Learning, because this is an event supported by TCN Southeast Europe Hub, which is a consortium of Aristotle University Digital Communication Network, nonprofits, public and private organizations, and companies involved in the field of digital communication, social impact, campaigns, technology, and innovation. I'm done with my beginning poem. So thank you very much for everyone for helping us and being here. And let's start by asking each of the wonderful girls who are here from all around the world to say a few words. And I'll start them, I don't know, in the order where they appear on my screen. Ashna, she's from Singapore and was studying in France, will be studying in London, but still in Singapore. So tell us a bit about yourself, please, Ashna.
Hi, thank you for the floor, Diane. I'm Ashna. I'm 19 years old. I am an Indian living in Singapore and have been living here for the past 5 years. I have been studying for the past 2 years at Sciences Po Paris in France, and now will be moving on to the next university, University College London in the UK, as I'm pursuing a dual degree program between the two in the field of international relations. I hope through this webinar to be able to share my experience as an international student in 2 different countries, as well as being a resident of a few too, to share my experiences and hopefully shed some light on the situation that exists in my part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashna, so much. And we'll get back to the details of your adventure between France and Singapore during these last few months. And I think it will continue a bit. Vlada is joining us from Ukraine, from Chernihiv. And please tell us a few words about yourself.
Okay, I'm 17 years old, and this year I graduated the school. I'm trying to enter the military university in Zhytomyr while living in Chernihiv. Um, I don't think I really can say something s- strange for all of us because I'm from Ukraine. I think is everything um, the same, but still, I'm happy to be here. I think I can add something that would help.
Thank you. Definitely you could add, because it's interesting to see how things are in different places. Anupa is joining us from Kathmandu, from Nepal, and I would like to ask her to say a few words also about herself.
Thank you. I'm Anupa. I'm currently living in Kathmandu, Nepal, and I'm studying in Trinity International College. I have taken humanities stream as my major, so I study the related subjects that incorporates sociology, contemporary society, mass communication, journalism, and major English. I'm very thankful for having been invited here to share a few ideas on my country during this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Anupa. Vida.
Thank
Vida is in Germany right now, also studying in France. And please tell us a few words also.
Hi, my name is Vida. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Germany, but these last 2 years I studied political science together with Ashna at Sciences Po Paris in Dijon. And now I'm kind of stuck here in Germany, just waiting for responses from my exchange year in St. Petersburg. And yeah, I hope it's gonna be fun.
It will but definitely be interesting, that's for sure. Irina is joining us from Bucharest. Please tell us a few words, Irina.
First of all, hello everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here and to talk about how badly and weirdly Romania is doing with this pandemic. Diana knows what I'm talking about. I'm Irina. Again, I'm 20 years old. I live in Bucharest now. I've been living in Bucharest for 1 year. And I study at the Faculty of Political Science in Bucharest. And I'm studying political science, obviously. And that's it.
Thank you. We joked. We have a group on WhatsApp and we talk these days, and we joked that we have a military lady, political sciences, humanity. So we could make a government if we really want to, and I don't know, take over a country and make it only ladies land.
We just need to decide which country we want.
Well, if you want, Franak,
we can do Romania. Actually, we can start with
do,
Romania.
Yeah, we can do. It's okay. We agree with that. So for all of you, because I know you, and I know a bit about your story. It's been an interesting period for all of us, but I want to know how especially it affected you, ladies. How did the pandemic change your lives in the last few months? So I know that some of you changed countries, some of you changed cities, and some of you, and most all of the lives were moved online. So the most interesting, and I would like to start with Ashna's story, how it affected her because she was studying in France. Please tell us a bit about your story.
Thank you. I don't know if many of you know, but as a resident of Singapore, I have quite many rules to follow. And I, obviously not being a citizen, have, let's say, a more tenuous residency, in the sense that for me, in France, the day the French government announced that universities and schools were closing down, I had to make a decision that night that the next morning I wanted to fly to Singapore. So at 10 p.m. That night, I booked my flight for 10 a.m. the next morning back to Singapore, because I was worried that the Singapore borders would close and I would be stranded in France. And so that's just one example to show you how overnight I had to adapt and the situation changed so drastically. Um, I think overall, I was fortunate enough to come back and stay home with my family, and everyone was safe, and I was living a pleasant, happy life, even though I was at home. I think, in terms of my university, my classes were well adapted, even though they had only 1 week to reimagine the whole mode of education. They had the daunting task of transforming years and years of traditional established in person classes into online learning in a matter of 7 days. And they kept on using the word unprecedented just to show that how unimaginable the current situation was. The biggest change for me, I think, was the fact that as an international student, all of my friends were in another part of the world. All of my studies were taking place at a different time zone. So my days turned into my nights into days. I was up until 2 a.m. studying, attending classes, and I personally started feeling quite left out because all of my friends were in the same time zone. They were able to communicate and have discussions. And, the thing that I feel I missed out on was the social interaction aspect of it. However, at the same time, I personally, from an education perspective, had a very pleasant experience with online learning. I found that my university had to adopt a more lenient tone and the whole structure had to be reconstructed. And attendance, which was originally compulsory, and more than two attendance, which would give lead to us failing the class, now was not mandatory. I thought that the gap between teachers and students reduced, and I found that the whole interaction was a new experience. It was much more casual, much more relaxed. I was able to see inside my teachers' homes. I was able to see their kids who constantly visited us during lectures. I was able to have much more informal discussions with them. And I felt that through all of this, I was able to study at my own pace. And for me personally, this education definitely new, definitely something I was not used to, but something I thought I was able to adapt to.
But
Can I jump here? So
yeah.
the question to Ashna and to everyone. So can you describe what you felt when you knew about the closing borders, closing schools, about the quarantine if it was announced? So do you remember this moment when you realized that things are changing and you have to take serious decisions? Just tell us about this moment.
So, as I mentioned, I come from Singapore, and the situation in Asia had been worsening since December. In Singapore, the first case was in January. So, when I had come back for the small holidays that we have in February, I could already feel the change that was taking place. And for me, this was reiterated when I went back to France and I had to undergo 2 weeks
Yeah.
of self quarantine, self isolation, because I had traveled back from Singapore. So I think for me, I was just waiting for the penny to drop and the situation in France to kind of reach the brink, like the turning point. And so it was an ongoing discussion, which I was every day just waiting anxiously. When will they kind of start taking things more seriously? That's what I felt. And
Mhm.
and I think my parents were just expecting me to call them and tell them, hey, you need to book my flight and I need to come home.
Thank you. And what about others?
For me, it was like the week before the lockdown. There was this whole time this question of is President Macron closed down the unis or not? And there was the whole time like this sense of uncertainty, and so like with this big confusion that was hanging over all everybody. Nobody could really focus on studying, or and we had like uh, exams ongoing, like starting would be starting. So I felt kind of like I could not manage to take these exams. So when the lockdown was announced, it was just like, phew, we were all lucky. But also, and the like, I was think I it would like there was a lot of anxiety among many students. Many needed to decide if they want to go home or if they want to stay where they are in France, especially among international students. So there were the like big discussions broke out like about the uh, uh, goods and bads about staying or not staying. And I personally decided to stay in France in my student residence because my friends decided to stay, but also I would have not have enough place back at home. And I just felt me having my own room and me being with my friends and everything is much better just to focus on all these online classes.
I can continue with my own experience. I remember I was in Bucharest. I do not live in Bucharest. I live 3 hours away from Bucharest. So I remember things were getting worse and worse around Romania. Like the countries around Romania and Europe had the virus and everything. I mean, in January, people were laughing about this virus and about this pandemic. There was not yet a pandemic, and nobody took it seriously. Not even myself. I honestly thought it was just the flu, but of course, it's not. Um, and I remember people started talking and panicking. It was the second week of March, and suddenly, just one day, events were just canceled on Facebook. I received notifications like in the same day, in the events were canceled on Facebook, and then we were waiting for a response from the University of Bucharest, of which my faculty belongs, and they said that we will continue classes like physical classes, and we won't go to do we're not going to do online classes. And we, of course, as students, didn't want to go to the faculty anymore, like physical classes. We did not know what it meant. I honestly thought it was going to be like 2 weeks off, take it as a vacation, and then come back and move on. But it obviously wasn't that. No one was expecting it to last for so long. And people started panicking so badly at some point that there were rumors, I don't know where they came from, about Bucharest closing down. So I remember students running with their luggage at the train station and going home, and everybody was on top of each other, and the trains were full and the buses were full. And then the university decided to do online classes, which was this whole experience of online classes, in my experience, was pretty disappointing, to be honest, because some professors didn't really do classes, I would say. And it's not just the case of my faculty, it's also the case of a lot of students who are enrolled in middle school, primary school, and all of that. And there is no official data in Romania about how many online classes were held, but there is official data about how many students did not have access to internet, and that number is very, very worrying. And the Ministry of Education of Romania is not really aware of how many children need their help, and that number is actually 900,000 of Romanian students who did not get to go to classes, and who basically stopped actually going to school, and their right of receiving an education was just taken away in March, in the second week of March. And that's very, very worrying. And I really think that this whole experience, this whole lockdown, and this whole experience with the online classes really, really showed how many social cleavages and economical cleavages exist in my country, and not only, everywhere.
Yeah, on an optimistic note. Yeah.
Actually, the question here to Anupa perhaps and Vlada, and at this moment when everything began, when the life just began changing forever, what were sources of information? Did you listen to your parents? Did you listen to people on Facebook? Did you really check any news, which I very doubt, because me neither. So what was the main source of information regarding the COVID? Because I understand that all of us didn't take this seriously. I think most of us didn't take it seriously in the beginning. But what were sources there back then and now? Did they change?
Sources of information were pretty same before and after the lockdown. The teenagers now do not rely on newspapers, television, radios are as the sources of information, but they rely rather on webcast, internet. There is this one page called Routine of Nepal Banda in my country. This page provides timely information about the country and the current happenings. So, therefore, the youths relied highly on that page. Even so, when the virus was spreading and the country was suffering from the virus, people still joked about it every other day, owing to the popular belief that viruses cannot survive in acidic environments. There is this one rumor that said that drinking lemon juice or lemon water will kill the virus, and that a professor in China, who later turned out to be non existent, said so too. So many people here, surprisingly, even the teenagers and the youths, believe that Lord Pashupatinath, one of the holy temples and sacred places in Nepal, will protect the Nepalese people from the virus. And that's how strong we are. People kept spreading misinformation regarding the virus and making jokes out of it while not realizing the depths of the situation. So they relied on internet to acquire information even during this lockdown.
Yeah, the lemon story is very common. It's everywhere, the lemon story. And in Eastern Europe, there was a saying that we Eastern Europes have a gene that protects us from the virus. Well, unfortunately, not.
Oh, I heard not about the gene. I heard that in this Soviet bloc countries, they were making the special like injection or like since childhood, and this is why I saw a little fatalities in Eastern countries. But then when this huge number of fatalities just started to emerge in Russia, they say, oh, perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps this it didn't help us. So Vlada, what's about Ukraine?
Actually, my parents and I tried to watch some news and read some newspaper because in internet it was so lots of disinformation and the wrong information, like about that hard alcohol would kill the virus. It isn't true, I think. So it was really hard to find a real information first time. Uh, but we needed like 1 week to use to it, to feel okay, like to not feel panic about the pandemic, because first time no one believed it was true, and no one believed in the danger of the virus. So then we started to have distance studying, and it was different from other girls have, because we haven't lessons. We just have a tasks, homework that we needed to do, and that's all. It was really bad idea, I think, for all of the students, because uh, like if we can cheat, we cheat. So we were doing our homeworks with internet, or asking our parents for help. So we can make a conclusion, so that if students studied at schools, they would have a lot more information and learned a lot more material than they have while distance study. Yeah. I have an example. I have a little brother, and he received really a lot of homework on the distance studying, so he just haven't chance to send it on time. So we were doing his tasks with whole family. Like my dad and my mom were doing Ukrainian while I was doing math. So of course he didn't understood the themes, and it was really bad for him. And I had an exams this year, so the distance studying wasn't good.
But for others, distance studies were good, not good. So how do you assess? Let's vote. Who we need democracy here. So who believes that actually this switch to the distance learning was the good thing, and this education, this form of education, is more useful and convenient? Oh, you can just say Vida. Okay, so no voting is just.
No, yeah, like in comparison to other experiences now, I think ours was very well organized. We had after, like, we had links to Google Drive or to Moodle, and then there we could just watch the lectures, and after each lecture we had also like 1.5 hour of discussion with our professor, so that we could ask some questions, things that were not really clear. And it was like you like I just felt like in some subject I could dive into the lectures much more deeper. I could ask more questions. I could just like really grasp about what's going on. And then sometimes you just realize that you don't really understand subjects you haven't really understood before. And then you just need to see like ask others in your class if they can give you their notes. And like I did pretty much. I was pretty much satisfied with that. That it really depends on the teacher, and it really depends on the subject, how well the teacher can explain all these concepts, and how well you can grasp the subject.
I would have to agree with Vida. We had a very similar experience having gone to the same university, but we took a few different classes. So I remember one of my classes was international negotiations, and this class specifically runs on simulations. So one evening, we actually were able to have a whole simulation on the COP conference, the environmental conference, on Zoom. And it was just incredible how we were able to adapt such a multifaceted, difficult simulation onto this platform and still end up gaining so much and learning so much from it. And so I believe that our experience was quite positive in the sense that we didn't feel cheated of anything. We had all the experiences. I know that many people at my university also after school used to have group workout sessions or meetings of yoga. So things that we used to do together in our university, we were kind of continuing them, but through Zoom, I guess. So the distance was there, but we kind of broke it down through our Zoom. If I might actually reply to one of your previous questions, Fana, you asked about the sources of media and how we were getting information during COVID. I actually had a very different experience. I realized I was turning more and more towards the government, towards international organizations such as the WHO for my information. I remember on the 12th of March, anxiously waiting for President Macron to give his speech telling us more information about what was going to happen in France, eagerly waiting, and then at 8 p.m. sharp in the evening, switching on and watching the broadcast, live of his speech, and repeatedly over lockdown of Prime Minister Modi in India, of the Singaporean Prime Minister as well, Prime Minister Lee. And it was just a very new experience because under normal circumstances, I don't have a tendency to turn on the TV and listen to the speeches of presidents and prime ministers live. So I felt that that was a shift in my kind of sources of information.
For high school, did it feel different, Vlada and Danupa? Did you feel like you were, I don't know, more vulnerable because university anyway it's a bit more flexible from the start as an opportunity to study, but also having exams, Vlada, you had exams or you're gonna have
Yes,
exams? Yeah.
I had exams this year, but it was a little bit data was removed, so we had it not in the time, and we had more time to prepare to these exams. Um, that was good because I wasn't really prepared in time. So yeah, in schools we hadn't so much control on our works and on our learning, and teachers just gave us tasks and left. Yeah. So I didn't felt this distance studying at all. I felt like holidays with little tasks. So I don't really know. Yeah.
Did any try any of this service of distance education, like something like Google Scholar or like different what is the former Linda, but now LinkedIn Learning? I don't know, different services, or actual universities, they just released the free access to their courses. Did any try, to explore by yourselves?
Okay, I had some links from university I'm trying to enter. So yeah, I'm used to visit these sites, but it wasn't like everyday learning. Only sometimes, if I had a time for it, except my school learning.
Anupa, how was it? How did it move online? How was the transition for you? Was it okay?
Yeah, it was kind of okay. Many schools here began conducting the classes via video telephony software such as Zoom and Google Meet. Despite this lack of access to technology and fast and reliable internet connectivity has become an obstacle to continued learning, especially for the students from remote and disadvantaged areas. Imagine the scenario in Nepal, which incorporates 460 rural municipalities. Therefore, the students residing in urban cities were mostly present in online classes, whereas the students inhabiting the rural areas were substantially absent while a few still attended. Here, even in top private colleges and schools, the student participation in online classes has not expanded to more than 50%, given that the migrant students were actually originally from underprivileged areas and communities attend such schools. However, my experience with online classes was pretty good. Our classes were methodical, effective, and orderly. The teachers were always well prepared. The teachers made use of PowerPoint presentation and slides to make the online classes more innovative, interesting, and interactive. Also, they kept assuring us to question the things that we hadn't understood, and that they would answer even via email, phone calls, and text messages, and they did keep their words. However, teachers' unfamiliarity with technology and unavailability of necessary equipments such as laptops made it a little difficult for both the teachers and the students.
I know I'm a bit tired of Zoom and all this video conference. Do you feel the same? Anupa, others? Are you tired of this video calls and presentations online? Because I think
No,
everyone is sick of.
it's
Definitely not,
actually
because I
pretty
just
fun.
haven't it.
No? And what about others? Ashna, Vida, Irina?
It was really exhausting when we had like 2 days in the week where we had like the whole day just video conferences. So and you're just like stuck in your room and like on your screen. It's just like, oh, okay, what's going on?
Was anyone hacked? Actually, did the situation make you more cautious about your surfing, about your stay online? Did you put like more passwords to factor authentication on your email box because you spend more time online?
I've got a lot of spam about a virus actually that wasn't really true and tried to disinformate people. Uh, but it wasn't really like a lot of them, so no.
Well, in my case, we didn't really do too many online classes, I would say. I mentioned previously that I was pretty disappointed of my professors and of how my faculty managed the whole situation. I think I only did one class, like regular classes every week. We were discussing, and it was very cool. But that class was cool also in physical form. But then in online form, I was getting bored or whatever. Not necessarily getting bored, but I feel like a lot of my professors did not necessarily do online classes, but at the same time, they were demanding us to read a lot more, and at some point it became overwhelming, and that was it wasn't the best experience. But because we didn't, to answer your second question, but because we didn't really do too many online classes, we didn't have too many problems with viruses. So yeah.
Maybe the professors were scared of of
Oh yeah,
hackers.
definitely. That was the situation exactly.
So how do you feel now? How hopeful are you? What do you expect for the fall? I don't know. I know you don't have answers. I'm just asking what your personal projections are about what will
So
happen. Yeah,
so,
Vida.
so like there's a lot of discussion about, is there gonna be a second wave? Do we need to prepare for a second wave? uh I don't think there's gonna be a second wave. Like the first wave was just a surprise. Oh my god, everybody needs to go to lockdown now. Like everybody has some kind of routine, everybody knows what's going on. It's something we, like, everybody, like the government, the authorities feel they can have a control over, like tracking down people who have been tested positive. And then we have like the corona app, and like in every cafe and restaurant you need to like put your address and your number down so they can contact you in case something happens. So like I don't think a second wave is gonna happen. I just think that numbers might rise after vacation is over, when like people like there have been like some criticism that like some Germans in Mallorca are partying, and then they're gonna come back and spread the virus. And then like there have been discussions if they should go into self quarantine for 2 weeks, but in general I don't think nothing dramatic is, at least in Europe, gonna happen. I'm just curious about how uh, the neighboring countries outside of Europe can handle it. Like I want to go for my studies to St. Petersburg, so I really hope that the negotiations with air concerning air traffic and borders are gonna go well.
Can I intervene here? Because it's kind of connected to what you said about the second virus, the second wave. The situation in Romania is getting worse and worse. Or maybe it was as bad as before. Maybe it is as bad as before, but now at least we're testing a little bit more. And we are moving very fast towards 1,000 cases a day. And Diana, I don't think we've ever had so many cases in one day. No, I don't think so. So for us, it looks like things are getting way worse than before, and people are getting scared. I mean, some people, the ones who protect themselves, the ones who don't care, they just don't care. I see people taking the bus and not wearing a mask. I see people having fun, going to the beach, commenting on social media and saying that the virus is a scam, that is just a political move. Even yesterday, I had a discussion with my sister, and I had the virus and I was in the hospital for 1 month. And even my sister, who knew what I've been through, she said that she thinks it's just a political move and that it doesn't exist, and it's just a pretext for the state or whatever, businesses, companies, blah blah blah, to take money out of people's pockets. And it's very 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 sad. And maybe in some parts it's better and people got used to it and are taking care of themselves, but at least in my country, because of so much misinformation and disinformation, people are really not taking care of themselves and of their community and the vulnerable people. And that's very very sad.
And how do you think, who is behind this disinformation? Because we were trying to find out, and it's very difficult to trace who creates all these fakes. Do you have like any thoughts?
I mean, of course, probably in Romania, it's this whole propaganda comes from the outside, probably from the eastern side, east. But
From Black Sea, yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah,
dolphins in the Black Sea, yeah.
the
From
monster
Moldova,
coming
from
out.
Moldova.
Yeah. No, sometimes I find myself thinking, why would somebody, because I see videos, there's this viral video in Romania of um, several people taking off their mask, and I don't remember exactly what they say because it's just so stupid that my mind just automatically erased it from my brain. But the message is like, why would you wear a mask? You need to breathe, blah blah blah, like live life or whatever. And it's just so stupid. And I think, why would somebody like do that? What's the interest behind, I would say? And this is a very complicated idea with a very complicated answer that I'm not sure that I can give, but maybe the girls have an answer.
I understand, Irina, because in my country, in my city, people feel much calmer outside, and they don't wear any masks and anything. They just feel that everything is finished, but it's not. The situation it's got worse. The quantity of infected are increasing. So people just don't think that everything is true about the coronavirus. The panic periods are finished, so people feel free to do anything like it was before quarantine.
What do you, how do you feel, girls? Do you feel the same? Do you feel frustrated? Do people respect rules when you get out of the house? Ashna, Anupa, how do you see the communities around you reacting?
So I think in Singapore, since the government is quite strict and there are quite many laws, people don't have a choice but to respect the laws. I do know that there are these isolated cases in, especially in the suburban areas. I live in the center, so especially in the suburban areas, in which there'll be an odd case in which one person's moving without a mask, and then the ministry, the people roaming the streets, the police will kind of come and ask that person to take it, wear the mask. And I know in one instance that it aggravated and it became assault, that person who was asked to wear the mask got really violent and spit on that person, and a lot of things happened. But I think these are more isolated cases, and for the large part, the population is quite compliant and wears masks regularly, social distances, and hangs out only in groups of five.
I can add a
Um,
bit about my city, if I can. Um, like people here didn't feel control because it's any fines and police didn't do anything about the control. So you need to wear a mask only if you want to go in the shop, and that's all. And it's really not good. Yeah, you can continue. I'm sorry.
You wanted to add, Ashna, anything else?
no, it's just that I feel that in Singapore, the everyone is acting quite conscientiously. And at the workplace, for example, only 30% of the staff at one point, at a given point of time, can work. So they can social distance. And I think they're alternating, or in specific companies, only a specific, like, higher people, like, kind of come and work. And the, like, in the hierarchy, the lower ranking people just work from home. And lots of new and innovative ways are coming up. But in general, people are respecting the rules. Yeah.
Anupa, how is it like in Kathmandu and in Nepal in general?
Ever since the government has eased up the lockdown, many youths have been roaming around freely with absolutely no concerns for themselves and the others. In the name of supposedly peaceful protests, youths have been being in large swarm and not maintaining the much needed social distancing. And it is ironical since those are the ones fighting for change. Um, in the initial phase of the lockdown, there was this one person who got beaten up by the police force because he went out during this pandemic. But now, so many people leave their houses to visit the cafes and spend time together. There are a large crowd of people. If we, in the center of the towns, people are not following the safety instructions which are directed by the government. Although many people here are
So the problem is generalized with people who, except for Singapore, who apparently has a better tradition of doing with this, dealing with this.
In Germany, like
And-
in Germany, people also are very obedient when it comes to rules and regulations. But it's, of course, like, you're not completely immune to disinformation, but it's
that,
the minority.
And speaking about, sorry, Diana, speaking about being compliant to the government laws and everything, we actually, of course, because coronavirus and everything, all of our professors made us write essays about coronavirus, which also became kind of overwhelming. But at some point, one of my professors asked us to write about something about uh, the state and the social contract and everything, if the state respected its part of the social contract and everything. And I was doing some research on how many tests there were the state was doing in Romania, and how did the police ensure the lockdown and everything. And I really think that, I mean, the Romanian state did very badly, especially at the beginning. They were not doing enough tests. They were not sharing too much information. They kept posing themselves as the heroes of this lockdown, but people were actually getting sick. Our health system is very, very bad. Um, and then people were seemed like they were compliant, but they weren't actually compliant. For example, like they in media, they were presenting the situation as if people were actually compliant. But for example, if I was going out to go to the shop to do shopping, which was very, very, very rarely, um, there were people just living like life as if nothing was going on. And I was like, what do they share and what's the reality actually? And that was the case everywhere. And the police did not really do their job. Like the police was there and people were not wearing masks. They were talking in the street, and that was during the coronavirus lockdown. Like it was before when rules were like strict and everything. But then you see videos of the police beating up a family of Roma people who were, I don't know what exactly they were doing, but they were not respecting the lockdown, but they were very beaten up. But at the same time, you go out and you see people speaking in the street and not respecting the lockdown, but the police was there and did not do anything about it. So basically, like, this whole period really showed a lot of bias that the police had, the state had, how much people actually trusted the state and our leaders. And we actually there were several surveys and statistics about how much people trust the state and the leaders and everything. And it showed that the people did not really trust too much the prime minister, the minister of internal affairs, who was actually the person who was directly dealing with the situation. But of course, Romanian really trusted the Romanian church, and that was, of course, Romania. It was the case. So yeah, compliant, not compliant.
We have here Sulav Raj Baral from Nepal. He wants to say something to join the conversation. He's saying that young people started hunger strike. Sulav?
Yeah, Namaskar. It's me Sulav from Nepal. The youths of Nepal started the hunger strike independently from every part of Nepal. The center was Kathmandu. The two youths, Pukar Bom and Isan, they started this hunger strike. COVID-19, enough is enough. So on supporting every youth from each and every part of Nepal, they supported them. But their demand was to increase the PCR test and stop the RDT test, and uh, all the lockdowns should be not. They were just mentioning that there should not be lockdown. The persons can walk normally and freely. So the situation was not like that, because many youths from different countries were coming to our nation, their home country. So the condition was not like that. Earlier, Anupa mentioned about these things. The youths were in roads for demanding such things. The government of Nepal was also such been type of corrupt in that this tragic situation. So this pandemic was on every world, and as per our country is developing country, so the youths were there on demanding the RDT test should not be there, and there should be PCR test. More PCR tests should be there to stop the coronavirus. So this was the thing I want to just mention it. And is it correct or not? Let us discuss. I think so. The youth should enroll or not. They also started hunger strike too. They were the two persons started hunger strike for the other lives. For the other person's life, they were in the situation that they were in hospital, and the Prime Minister of Nepal also made them, and they just signed the agreement, but it was not effective. So again, they are in hunger strike now. I think
Okay.
Anupa also know the situation.
Thank you, Sulav. Anupa, did you hear about this?
Yeah, I did. But then the later the youths were accused of the people who started the initially the protest and the movement was said to be a leaderless movement. However, the leaders were involved, and then and later on, people, it was a controversial issue because people started accusing this movement of having leaders who had political agenda, and many of the youths did support the movement, but the Nepal police treated the youths with tear gas and water cannons, which made them to halt the movement in the first day. Later on, thousands of youths joined the protest, and the protest got got and the protests took chaos, and the
Yes.
protest was chaotic, and not many people got benefited from the protest.
Thank you. Thank you, Anupa, and thank you, Sulav. So what about other countries? Did you have like any protests, COVID related, and people for quarantine or against quarantine or whatever?
Yes, but just in big cities. It was when when the lockdowns was going on. I read that there were like a few protests going on against the lockdown from very different parts of society, from far right uh, people to people who are are already against vaccinations, or are coming from some kind of weird esoterical subcultures who don't believe in science and stuff, to people who felt a lot affected by the lockdown and just did not agree with this kind of policy. But like, it was really a minority. Like, there like only there was a survey that only 15% of people disagreed with the lockdown, and also like these protests stopped when the lockdown was lifted. So like yeah, with the spread of fake news and all this hysteria about vaccination and so on, I think they easily yeah, for this there were this otherwise.
Diana?
Yeah, we also had a bit of a few protests, like Vida said, of people who do not believe in science and in the virus, and deny everything. But they were pretty small, and only in Bucharest, I think we had 3 or 4, something like that.
I think here we should mention the civil society that really organized itself. I would say during the lockdown, a lot of people, a lot of NGOs and civic groups raised funds and donated different stuff for people who needed them and who were vulnerable and did not afford them, and that's very important to mention. And also there are 2 women who are actually building a hospital for children with cancer in Bucharest, but they actually raised funds from I don't know how many people, a lot of people who donated, and they've just built a hospital that they're going to start using only for COVID. And this kind of initiative is really, really useful and very helpful and very important, especially in a country where the health system is very bad and is just slowly crumbling, and it's very overwhelmed, I would say.
I will change from this pessimistic and sad aspect of the situation to something better, and ask you, what do you miss the most from your life before COVID? One thing. I know it's a lot, traveling and stuff, but just one thing you used to do and you can't do it anymore, and something good. Something positive, please.
This year, my family and I wanted to visit Montenegro, and with this quarantine, of course, we can't do it. And it was the bad news for us because we just couldn't have a rest from all of this quarantine and COVID stuff in our city and in our country. Uh, but I hope everything would finish soon and the quantity of infected people would be less than it is now. So I think that's all I really miss.
So I know where Vlada is going. First time the borders are open to Montenegro. She will be on the beach. No, not or chilling anywhere. Vida, what do you miss?
I actually like I can only think of traveling because but really our school trip got canceled that we were organizing for months and months and months, and it took a lot of effort to like cancel everything again, and it was such a pity because we wanted to go to Croatia and to Bosnia Herzegovina. So I just really miss just traveling without thinking too much about regulations and what kind of documents do I need to fill out, and if I can even meet my friends. So yeah, it's just some kind of freedom.
Nice. Vlada, what do you miss? No, Ashna, sorry, Vlada, I'm stuck in your vacation with my mind. I'm still in Montenegro with you. Ashna, what do you miss the most?
I think it'll be more about what I'm going to miss, because I've been, as a young girl, I've been really excited for my cousin's wedding. I've been planning it for years because he's the oldest cousin we have, and he would be the first out of all my cousins to get married. And finally he gets engaged, and we can't even have a wedding now, like a proper Indian wedding, you know, how you always imagine it. And so tomorrow we're having a Zoom engagement party.
That sounds exciting. On Zoom. More Zoom. Yeah. Anupa, what do you miss?
I miss going out with my friends. Nowadays, I can't do that. I've isolated myself in home ever since the lockdown. The only times I've gone out of my house is to buy ramen. That's all I know. So, and the good positive changes in this period is that many youths are conducting campaigns for distributing logistics support to the people in need. Navya Nepal group, a group led by the youths, are conducting campaigns for distributing stationery materials, sanitary pads, and food for the needy people in Kathmandu Valley. And many other youths have been involved in providing relief materials for poor families, donating money for good cause, and giving out masks for the general public and personal protective equipments, PPE, to the frontline workers in Nepal.
Yeah, well, that was my next question to you after we go down wishful thinking, what do we miss the most is what remains positive from this situation. What do we get from this? So, and people's involvement, people's civic engagement in some places, it's one of the things. Solidarity in general, I think. Irina, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted also to add additional layer to this question, but positive. So did you discover any new digital tool or TV show or computer game or whatever, something that you would never discover in normal circumstances? So something that just you tried the first time. For example, me, I because of the COVID, I bought the cat, the kitty. And cat was very helpful actually in surviving the COVID isolation mode. Also, I bought the. I actually discovered I watched so many TV series on Netflix that I didn't watch like for 10 years, and I discovered that the cinematography is awesome right now. And I think I didn't read much, but I read several books, that I would never read in normal life. So how about you? Some like one or two like major discoveries, digital, but not only.
Besides Zoom, right?
Besides Zoom, yeah.
The importance of maintaining a routine and just like how nice it is just to go on a run in the morning. That I wouldn't have like. I really had a good run like streak to just go running every day, like for half an hour in the morning, which normally I wouldn't have really done. So it's a new hobby, and painting.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. For me, it was quite similar to Vida. I actually started loving working out through Zoom or FaceTime with one of my friends in India. So we've been living in different countries and having similar lockdown periods. And so every day or every other day, we get together, decide a time, and spend like half an hour watching some YouTube, following some YouTube dance video or something, and just working out every day. And I think that's something that I've really been enjoying and finding positive.
That sounds great.
Okay. While distance studying, I started to write projects and like I did the homework for people and got money for it. Um, because anyone people and students didn't really want to lose time for doing their homework, and I got money for it. So it was really a good experience.
This is how future businesswoman has just started. This sounds like a good. How did you start your business? Well, I was in a lockdown. My first money came from doing homeworks. Irina, what did you miss and what did you learn?
I think I missed and I still miss being able to just be somewhere and not having this anxiety or whatever, like this overthinking of, oh, maybe that person has the virus, I can't get close to that person. Like basically I miss trusting people more, even people from my life. Like sometimes I even look at my father or my mother, if they cough or if they sneeze, I'm like, don't come close to me, let's not touch each other. And what I learned, that's a good question. I think I started reading more. I would say I'm not really a reader, but I started reading more and I started watching more quality movies, I would say. And discovering, yeah, basically that's it, I think.
Anupa, what stuck with you as good habits?
I
What
wouldn't
did you discover?
exactly say it's a good habit, but then I've been able to binge watch dramas that I couldn't before the lockdown. So many Korean dramas which were above 50 episodes. I couldn't watch them in my normal schedule, but now that everything feels so free, I've been able to watch the dramas and pass my lockdown as I've wanted to. It's relaxing.
So we should make a common list with Franak's recommendations and yeah, also and see make a movie recommendations list because
Actually, besides the movies, I about the computer games, because I didn't play like for 15 years, and suddenly I reopened for me the game Civilization. The last time I played, it was like a very like bad old graphic like, and the game was 2D, and now it's just like, oh my god, it's wonderful, And I several nights I just was playing like for 10 hours in a row. And later we organized a webinar by Digital Communication Network about the games. And these game developers, they're real game developers, they design games. They say that the people who were playing games, they were much better prepared for the COVID time. Because, you know, games, it's like, it helps when you're stressed, it helps to organize your thoughts, it helps you just like to get out from this brutal reality. Yeah, and I think it's, well, how about you? Did you play anything, any games, video games, computer games?
I'm playing Last of Us 2, so it's also about girl power over there in a post-apocalyptic pandemic world. So I'm getting ready for that.
Good job, Diana.
My little brother has a PlayStation, so I never tried to play in it, and in a computer games actually. Um, I didn't think that I actually in it, but it was a really good experience, and now I'm playing with my brother. We play together, and he's not really happy because he wanted to play, but still, it's quarantine time.
Yeah, we have to adapt, definitely. Um Thank you, ladies, so much for such a lovely conversation, and I really hope we will get through better times in the next period and hear better news from each other and that things will improve. Franak, thank you so much for being such a wonderful co-host and breaking the too girly spirit between us.
And thanks, Diana, for wonderful moderation. And in
Thank
general, yeah, let's meet more often. And that was great to talk.
you. And let's exchange ideas for filling out time during this period. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening, afternoon, night, day, whatever time zone you're in. And I really hope we will see each other again on Zoom, and maybe, I don't know, we are lucky enough to see each other in live at some point. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.